Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Oh, let's try that again. Folks had food, you sat through another panel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, I'm excited. My name is Alicia Garza. I'm the Special Projects Director for the National Domestic Workers Alliance. And I am excited today because I feel like today is the day of the Black woman.
Yes.
I'm really just feeling that.
Yes.
You know, I feel like we need like a national holiday or something.
That's right.
But more than that, I'm excited because today is the day that we have released in partnership with the Institute for Women's Policy Research and so many others who helped us kind of think about what are the questions we need to be asking when we're looking at the conditions and the status of Black women throughout the United States of America. And so this panel is really intended for us to dive into that conversation as a launching point, as a springboard for understanding what's inside this incredible report. If you know anything about me, you know that while I am nerdy, I do not tend to like reports. So this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. And I love this document because not only does it tell us more about the contours of what Black women are facing in our economy and in our democracy, but it also tells us what other work we need to do to better understand where Black women are at. You're going to hear more about this on the panel today. We tried to the best of our ability to do more work around what's the status of Black immigrant women in the United States? What's the status of Black trans women in the United States? What's the status of Black disabled women in the United States? And the fact of the matter is, as hard as we work, we can always find things that we need to continue to move forward on. But the thing that excites me about that is that every step that we take to continue to close those gaps, the more we know about what we're experiencing, and more so, the more we know about what's at stake and what are the opportunities to create a new and better future, not just for Black women, but for all of us. And so today, we're gonna have a set of conversations with a powerful, like, I don't know if y'all can feel this, but there's heat emanating. There's heat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I might take off my jacket because it's hot. There's heat. There's steam, you know what I mean? From an incredible panel, not just of experts in their field, and they definitely are, but these folks sitting here are the visionaries of our time. These are folks who are digging deep into the questions of what's happening with Black immigrants in this country, what's happening with the state of Black folks in the labor movement, what's happening, how are Black women making it work and closing the gap between work and family balance? How is it that we're looking at the status of Black women in the South, where poverty rates, unemployment, and democracy is at stake, right? But one thing we also know about the South is that the South has been leading for a long time. These aren't new barriers, right? These aren't new barriers. So we are blessed to be able to hear today what some of the strategies are that Black Southern women are using to reshape our economy, to reshape decision-making processes. I mean, y'all, are you like feeling this or not? We're gonna hear about Black mamas. We're gonna hear stories from members of We Dream in Black, NDWA's Black Organizing Initiative that is bringing together Black women across the diaspora. Our motto is across the diaspora, our organizing is our power. Yes, honey. Can we just give that up? Okay, so here's how this is gonna work. We wanted to make sure you got all this brilliance, all of it. So each person here is gonna do a 5-minute TED Talk style. There's a big thing we're grappling with, and they're gonna tell you how they're doing that and how we should be thinking about it. And then we're gonna be in conversation with each other. And in fact, they are prepared to have a conversation with one another about how each of their areas of focus is actually not separate, but it's a part of one big picture. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what Dr. Crenshaw called intersectionality.
Come through.
Okay, so We Dream in Black is organizing through an intersectional lens, and you're going to be able to see some of how that works in practice. So, without further ado, let me introduce our fantastic panel. Shaqula Abdullah Ali is a mother, organizer, and long-term caregiver. Born and raised in Durham, North Carolina, Shaqula has been a child care provider and a home care worker for over 38 years. Shaqula is both formerly incarcerated and she's the mother of sons who have gone through the U.S. prison system. And she got her start in organizing around ending mass incarceration. Shaqula is a treasured and loved and revered and respected member of We Dream in Black Durham chapter, Bull City, of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. She is also a part of the Incarcerated Workers Organizing Committee and International Workers of the World, where she raises her voice for workers like herself and people who are stuck behind cell walls. Shaqula's purpose is to fight for others, and she carries this spirit in the work that she does every day. Give it up for Shaqula, y'all. Next up, we'll hear from Monifeh Bandel, Vice President and Chief Partnership and Diversity Officer for MomsRising.org. Monifeh has more than 15 years of experience in policy analysis, communications, civic engagement organizing, and project management, working with groups like the Brennan Center for Justice, People's Hurricane Relief Fund, and the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. At Moms Rising, Monifeh manages the Healthy Kids and Maternal Justice campaigns, helping to increase children's access to healthy food, dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline, end mass incarceration, and make sure that every mother has justice. Forbes named MomsRising.org as one of the top websites for women 4 years in a row. During her tenure at the Brennan Center as National Field Director for the Right to Vote campaign, the coalition successfully changed laws in 5 states, expanding the franchise to more than 250,000 formerly incarcerated people. Give it up for Monifeh, y'all. Nana, is that how I say it? Mm-hmm. Great. Didn't want to mess it up. Names are important now.
Appreciate you.
Nana Brantuo.
Excellent.
Okay, fantastic. Is an educator, researcher, and writer, and was born and raised in the Washington metropolitan area. A doctoral student in minority and urban education at the University of Maryland, College Park, which is where we met last year, because Nana was tearing it up over there, child. And also a proud alumna of Howard University.
That's right.
Yes. She centers her academic interests on the mobility, migration, and the educational experiences and trajectories of African and African descendant peoples, and has presented at several academic conferences in the US and in the Caribbean. A dedicated educator, Nana teaches courses that are focused on the creation of equitable classrooms that address the holistic needs and complex identities and experiences of students. She also works as a mindfulness coach for Black Girl Brilliance. You know what? A mentoring program that serves academically excellent girls in Washington, D.C., who face barriers to accessing quality educational opportunities. All right. Nana is here in her role as policy manager for the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, where she addresses the multiple ways in which federal policy impacts the lives of Black immigrant communities throughout the U.S. Give it up for Nana, y'all. Latasha Brown is an award-winning, and this is the truth, yeah, this is the truth right here, community organizer, philanthropic consultant, jazz singer, and political strategist with over 20 years of experience working in the nonprofit and philanthropy sectors on a wide range of issues related to social justice, economic development, leadership development, wealth creation, and civil rights. She's the current project director for Grantmakers for Southern Progress, a funder working group of the Neighborhood Funders Group, NFG. Latasha is also principal owner of Truth Speaks Consulting, a professional facilitation and philanthropy consulting business based in Atlanta, Georgia. for more than 25 years. She's been a consultant and an advisor for individual donors, various public foundations, and private donors. She's a founding member of the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors Gulf Coast Fund for Community Renewal and Ecological Health, yes, and also served as the fund's first executive director. Give it up. Give it up, please. Next up, Jessica Bird is a Black queer feminist and a relationship-driven political operative working at the intersection of social justice and electoral politics. Ooh, don't we need that?
Yes.
She's the founder and principal strategist of 3 Point Strategies, a DC-based consulting firm executing strategic political programming for people of color candidates, campaign staff, and organizations. Jessica has worked on campaigns in 43 states and has led national and state-based programs to clear the pathway for underrepresented communities to engage in the political process. Jessica is a graduate of Chatham College for Women in Pittsburgh and is the former campaign director of Democracy in Color. And I don't know if y'all went to this DNC forum that was like everything. It was the first time, maybe in history, that candidates who were running to be the head honcho of the DNC had to answer questions about Black people. And I mean, if you had been there, I was there, and people were shifting, and they were like, I don't know what to say, but like, these things are important. So thank you for that, Bird. Jessica was also named the January Woman to Watch by Essence Magazine. She is one of 12 new faces of Black leadership by Time Magazine, and Rolling Stone said she's one of the most influential millennials shaping the 2016 election. I told y'all it was fire. You didn't believe me. You thought I was tripping. Ooh, just kidding. Tracy Sturdivan is co-founder and co-executive director of Make It Work. For the last 20 years, she has worked to strengthen democracy for all, a self-professed one-woman coalition. Tracy has been a leader and strategist inside progressive organizations and philanthropic institutions dedicated to increasing the civic participation of women, people of color, and youth. She was most recently executive director of State Voices, an advocacy organization focused on nonpartisan civic engagement. Tracy is now the executive director of Make It Work and serves on several boards, including ours, National Domestic Workers Alliance, Greenpeace USA, and Higher Heights for America, where she is board chair. Give it up. Last and definitely not least, is Tanya Wallace Goburn, who is the executive director of the National Black Worker Center Project. After graduating Loyola University of Chicago, her home city, she moved to the South to launch an organizing career empowering women and people of color. She did this with Unite Here, which was formerly the Union of Needle Trades, Textiles, and Industrial Employees, AFL-CIO, and the Association of Flight Attendants. In 2004, she entered the nonprofit community to lead the field operations for Women's Action for New Directions. Tanya is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and has directed national programs to educate the public and elected officials about the need to reduce and redirect excess military spending. Tanya relocated to Sacramento in 2008, where she began to learn a non-adversarial approach to trade unionism. I'm so excited about this. And joined the staff of the Coalition of Kaiser Permanente Unions, where she served several leadership roles. She's also a graduate of the Harvard Business School Executive Leadership Programs, and her opinions and contributions have been featured in the popular press. I told y'all this is hot, and I had to give them their due diligence. But now you're going to see and hear from them just how on fire they are. So, kicking us off is Ms. Shaqula. Please come. You can do it from there if you're more comfortable.
Yes, I am. Listening to people speak previously to now, everything's been so formal, so I'm going to go off the grid some because formal, it's not my thing. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Shaqula Abdullah Ali. My slave and government name is Cynthia Ann Parrish Perry Fox. so I prefer Shaqula. I was born on July the 15th, 1956. I'm the eldest of 6 children. I was forced to raise my siblings due to the fact that my mother was unable to. At the age of 16, I got married. The only thing was, I was the only one that was married. For the next 15 years off and on, I was physically abused, which led to my incarceration in 1978 at age 22. And even after my incarceration, I was still abused. There was no self-defense law in the state of North Carolina during that time. This part of my life stripped me of my confidence and threatened my sanity. Yet, because I was raised by a spiritual grandmother, by the grace of God, I pulled myself back together. I've been an advocate of Islam and the issues of domestic violence and mass incarceration and organizing against the continued Jim Crow tactics that have been used against women of color. For as long as I can remember, I've always been a fighter, and at the age of 60, I'm not finished yet.
That's right.
Just getting started. By any means necessary, I will fight until I am no more. I began on child care work shortly after my incarceration. I was a lead teacher at a daycare, caring for infants and children up to 3 years of age. My pay from maybe the 80s to 1999 was insufficient, but just enough to help me take care of my 3 sons. My youngest was born in 87, my second son was born in 93, and my third son was born in 94. I forget sometimes. So they're 29, 24, and 23. I resumed my health care work around 2010, caring for mostly the elderly. I knew a lot about this work because I took care of my own grandparents as a teenager. The pay still wasn't great then, and even now it doesn't. The pay isn't sufficient to avoid struggle. And you know, in the state of North Carolina, I don't think that they believe that there was ever a civil war, period, because they don't act like it. And North Carolina is still much in the past when it comes to fairness of our people. The presence of the Ku Klux Klan is everywhere. There are more prisons in the state of North Carolina than any state in the United States outside of Texas. There are more prisons in the United States than any other country in the world, and that speaks volumes. Anyway, there are a lot of expectations from healthcare providers, but there's little in the way of help from the government and agencies. Organizing helps one to vent about the importance of their job, and we do what no one else would do. We're basically at the bottom. Yet, without CNAs, healthcare workers, and home care providers, not many people will get the personal compassion all human beings deserve when they are in need of assistance. In Durham, the National Domestic Workers Alliance and its We Dream in Black chapter petitioned the county commissioners for a day of recognition, and we got it.
All right.
It will be honored on October the 13th.
All right.
It was a move in the right direction. But we need more. More money would allow me to afford a car instead of busing it. It would also better my living conditions and allow better means for me to care for my clients. There should be provisions for healthcare workers to take care of clients according to their individual needs. The guidelines aren't adequate enough to serve clients as they should be served because the system makes mandates one shoe fits all. How ignorant. Personalizing healthcare workers, personalization, is what a healthcare worker does regardless of the guidelines. Canvassing and growing our chapter, leadership, growth, and research and agency work is just a part of what we do with We Dream in Black and Durham. We need to change how black women in America are viewed, and we need to empower ourselves because we're well overdue. Black women can make a huge difference in America by collaborating in our creativity, our ideas, our views, our resources, and even our money. The freedom of all black women, of all women, depends on the freedom of black women, and that's what I'm fighting for.
All right.
Just gonna roll. We're gonna keep it rolling. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for that, Shaqula, and also it's Ramadan,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
so I want to especially thank you for being here and sharing with us your story and your work. My name is Monifeh Bandel. Again, I'm from Moms Rising, and I'm actually from Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And Crown Heights is a very, very interesting place. When I grew up, you basically had a convergence of black mothers from everywhere. You had black mothers from the South, from the Caribbean, from South America, from West Africa. You had Francophones, you had Latinas, and we just kind of all lived in one community, speaking many languages, sharing food. But we had some things that were definitely in common. One, all the girls, we all jumped double dutch. Didn't matter. Garifuna or Senegal, we all jumped double dutch. And our mothers and their earned income was critical to our family economic security. And beyond our own households, our mothers collectively in their earned income was important to everything from community safety to community health. And so when we look at this report today, for many of us, it's no surprise that that is still the case, because it was when I grew up, and it was also the case when my mother grew up. The report shows us today that upwards in 80% of black mothers earn from 40% of the household income all the way up to all of it. And in many times, it's all of it. And so having that person in place, holding it together, being the provider, making sure the community is safe and healthy by making sure there are safe and healthy households is critical. But here's a dynamic that exists. While black women are central in holding together these households in our communities, they are more likely to face all of the outside hits that any person can get. Wage discrimination, employment discrimination, healthcare discrimination, housing discrimination. Holding it together and then bearing all of the hits that anyone could possibly hit. And the one that I want to talk about a little bit that Shaqula touched on is mass incarceration.
All right.
She said that the United States had more prisons and jails than any other country, and also the most prisoners. In fact, in the United States, 1 million women are under some form of criminal justice supervision. In the federal system, 2/3 of them are mothers. So we have a situation where 2.7 million children have an incarcerated parent. And so again, this is a crisis. It's an economic crisis, it's a safety crisis, it's a health crisis. And whether you're in a federal prison or in some jail holding cell like our sister Sandra Bland, the impact is severe. The physical impact, the economic impact, the maternal impact.
Right.
And so what does that say? Does it say that black mothers are the problem? No. Actually, black mothers sit at the intersection of racism, sexism, maternal discrimination, and so we're actually the seers of the solutions. We have the multi-angled, sharp vision of all the problems as they're going on in real time from every angle. We have less blind spots, but are often left out of designing the solutions. I call this Harriet Tubman vision. Harriet Tubman can see the misogyny in the abolitionist movement. She could see the racism in the women's rights movement. She knew what life was like on the plantation. She knew what life was like up north. And like black mothers and how we organize, how we increase political participation, she saw the brothers and sisters in bondage, those who are most impacted, not as victims, but as assets and leaders to their own liberation and the collective liberation. So she was able to be one of the most effective liberators in the country because she knew to tap into those who could see, hear, and understand everything that was going on. She could liberate 300 by land, 800 by sea.
That's right.
So this is why we have to tap into the genius of Black women. This is the legacy that we come from. This is how we are seeing the problem. It's how we can play a critical role in the solution. I hope that people really take the recommendations in the report seriously, but really double down on political participation. We are outperforming at the polls. We're voting at higher rates, and I'm talking about before the last 2 general elections, than most other demographics, and yet are far behind in holding public office and being able to have the political power that we need to take from the household to the community to the nation. So I just want to say, in the end, I want to thank everyone who worked on this report. At Moms Rising, we hear these stories every day, but we are confident. We know victory is certain because look at what we have here today. Thank you.
So thank you both for that. Thank you to everybody that's here, and I'm just really grateful to be in this space and to add a different or another level or another layer to this overall narrative by discussing Black immigrant women and the state of Black immigrant women in the United States, which very much mirrors what we've talked about or what's been talked about in this excellent report. If you haven't already gotten a copy, make sure you do send this out to folks. This is really important. Black women have been saying these things for centuries, right? And we've always known. We have the data now, so now there's really no excuse, right? So I just want to give a bit of an overview of Black immigration, Black immigrants in the United States, and focus in on women in particular. And just to be very clear, Black immigrants have been coming to the United States since the 1800s. This is nothing new. Our presence has always been here. Even some of the women that we think of, like Claudia Jones, right, who was born in Trinidad. When we think of Audre Lorde, whose parents were from the Caribbean, Shirley Chisholm, whose family was from the Caribbean. We've always had a presence and always been contributing to the United States of America and its overall fabric, right? So we've always been here. In terms of large-scale movement or migration to the United States, arguably begins in 1943 with the British West Indies Guest Worker Program, which brings about 19,000 West Indians from Jamaica, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, thank you, Barbados, and the Bahamas to the United States. Moving a little bit forward in time, and this is during the time of the Civil Rights Movement, we also have throughout the Caribbean and Africa, we have independence movement. So as African and Caribbean nations achieve independence, there's also the opening up of borders in which now we have the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act that allows more Black people to migrate into the country. So post-independence for African and Caribbean nations coincides with the Cold War. And so the ways in which that looks like U.S. invasions, occupations, and interventions that undermine the development of these nations. We have structural adjustment programs that more or less destroy a lot of, and continue to have negative impacts on the economies of these nations. So our migration as Black immigrants here, it functions as a response to a lot of these policies that come from the U.S. and that come from Europe, right? Our migration functions as a response to political and economic instability, civil unrest, chronic and mass unemployment, poverty, structural adjustments of economies, and also deeply embedded patriarchy within our structures, right? So after 70 plus years of large-scale migration, Black immigrants have grown significantly in terms of numbers in the nation. The Black Alliance for Just Immigration recently released a report last year in 2016, showing that 1 in 10 Black folks in the United States was born outside of the U.S., primarily in the Caribbean and Africa, and then also it doesn't capture numbers of folks like me, whose parents were born in West Africa, but I was born here. So there's even a larger number in terms of this immigrant experience and what it looks like amongst Black folks. It's also projected that in 2060, by the census, this projection is that 16.5% of the Black population will have been born outside the United States. Once again, we're largely coming from Jamaica, Haiti, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Trinidad and Tobago, Ghana, a number of nations. We live alongside our African-American siblings, typically in New York City, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Washington, D.C., this entire area. It's also important to note that 16% of black immigrants are living in the U.S. without authorization. These are undocumented folks. And the ways in which we're impacted by these things, there's a cross-section between crime enforcement and immigration enforcement that leaves us in a very unique, very dangerous position, because we know that policing of black bodies is nothing new in this nation, right? Focusing in on gender, 55% of immigrants from the Caribbean are women. Oh, Lord, 1 minute. I'm going to hurry. Oh, gosh. So 55% of immigrants from the Caribbean are women, and 49% of immigrants from Africa are women as well. So there's a large number of women migrating from these regions, largely for economic opportunities and with the opportunity to send money back home, family reunification, but also leaving gender-based structural inequality, discrimination, and violence. And if you check out the World Health Organization, they constantly talk about sexual intimate partner violence and what that looks like in different regions. And in Africa, it's about 37%. Throughout the Americas, it's at 30%. So we've seen that there's been a rise in migration because of that. Economically, in terms of occupations, right alongside with African Americans, you have a large number of African and Caribbean folks that work in service occupations. My mother and my father worked in the hotel industry, so they were some of the first people to teach me about labor rights. They're the first person to, that's the first group of people I was learning about union reps and different things like that. So this is constantly a conversation that's going on in black immigrant spaces as well. I want to point out this and then sort of bring this to a close and have these things into consideration along with the report that we've been presented. So despite the fact that 27% of black immigrants over the age of 25 have a bachelor's degree, right? And 70.8% of black immigrants participate in the civilian labor force, which is the highest rate amongst all immigrant groups. We also have the highest unemployment rate of immigrants at 7.4%. Black immigrants also have a lower median annual household income than US citizens and immigrants alike. 1 in 5 black immigrants also lives in poverty. So typically we've seen a lot of news reports that sort of position specific groups of black immigrants in terms of educational attainment, in terms of jobs, but that's not the full picture. It's very real that our experiences in this country are very much guided by racism that's been in this nation for centuries, since its inception, really. And even if we look at wage and earnings, right? Caribbean women earn 8.3% less than US-born non-Hispanic white women. For African women, that's 10.1% less. And if we break down by nations, Haiti is at worst off at 18.6%. So I think moving forward and bringing this to a conclusion, because I've gone over my time and I'm sorry, y'all. I'm so sorry. I always over-prepare and write too much. But I think it's important to continue on in the gendered analysis of what's going on within the black community in particular, because black women have been shaping this nation since its inception and continue to do so. And I think when talking about black immigrant women in particular, we talk about anti-blackness, but we also talk about sexism and xenophobia, Islamophobia, which is very real and impacting black immigrant women on a daily basis. And I think it's important that moving forward, we acknowledge that leaving out narratives or paying attention to more narratives builds a greater picture of what's happening. And we really then keep to our word and our responsibilities to achieve a true democracy and a humanistic economy that addresses the needs of all people. Thank you.
I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired of the killing of my people and justice being denied. I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired of always showing up for others and there's no relief in sight.
All right.
I wanted to start that in a spirit of a song that I actually wrote I call it the Ode to Fannie Lou. because I am a Southern woman. I'm from the deep South. Matter of fact, I'm so Southern and so deep South that if you go any further from my home where I was raised in, you would wind up in the Gulf of Mexico. So in that space, I just want to offer kind of a context of the South and women and sisters in the South. And I think it's really interesting, just some context. I know you all know this, but I just want you to go on a journey with me for a minute. That women in the South, think about it, sisters in the South had, at the same time, they were nursing white babies, that their own children were being prepared to be sold on the auction block. That is somebody with deep humanity, the deep humanity to care for children although they were losing theirs, the kind of humanity that says, I will still care for you and even though I'm mistreated, right? In that context, I say that because I want to lift up the power of black women, not in the process of thinking about what are the problems of the South, but really what is the promise of the South. And the promise of the South are black women in the South. And there are several things I think I just want to pull out in terms of this report, and in particular that when you really look at black women, the behavior of black women, in terms of we are the bedrock of the progressive political movement in this country. We are, and quite frankly, if you look at the sisters in Mississippi, black women in Mississippi vote at higher rates than any other group in the entire country. We've done our part. When you look at how we participate not just in the political process, but when you look at the bedrock of the economy, we make up the bedrock of this economy. When you look at who are the caregivers in this economy, black women and women of color are the caregivers of this country. Even if you look at what the report, one of the things that the report brings up is that in the state of Louisiana, black women make 40 cents, almost half, less than half of what their white male counterparts make, doing the same exact thing. So let me see. So if we're showing up to the polls, if we are working, if we are taking care, right, if we're contributing to this economy, then what's going on? Then what's happening? So I think the real question for us really is, why hasn't it worked? Why hasn't it worked? And I think when we look at that, we vote, we work, we contribute. I think it's really important for us to examine some things. I want to step back for a second and say we need to examine black women always show up. The real question is, who shows up for us? So let's take a moment, let's talk about philanthropy. And I work in philanthropy. Does philanthropy, progressive philanthropy, show up for black women? According to the Southern Rural Black Women Initiative report, less than 1% of all investments to the South goes to organization of women of color. So let's look at politically. Politically, if we're the highest voting bloc and we have the highest performance, it would make sense that we would have representation. Yet we have less than 3% of African American women who are represented in elected office. When we look at stats that say that we're actually entering college more than anybody else, that we're starting businesses more than anybody else, that we're voting more than anybody else, that at the end of the day, if the report also talks about from 2004 to 2014, that even though you saw us rise in our behavior and our performance, there was actually a 5% decrease in our earnings. So I say all that to say, what can we learn from women of the South? Well, a couple of things you can learn from the women of the South, and I'm going to bring up some real quick because I know I only have that much time. What can we learn from women like Fannie Lou Hamer? What Fannie Lou Hamer understood is that we needed an alternative. So what she did with the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party is she understood leverage politics. And there's a need for us to think about how we engage in this a little bit differently. We've got to shift the paradigm in terms of how we look at things. Second, let's look at Shirley Chisholm. That's a sister that had the audacity to run for president. There's all of these consultants that will tell you all day long, and I've done political consulting work, that you're not electable, the electability factor, right? But there are some sisters that knew that even in the process of them organizing and running for public office, that there were some outcomes that could help the community. Then let's look at Dorothy Bolden. Let's look at someone who organized national domestic workers and understood the power of people who are actually on the front line of doing this work. And then there are other organizations, I don't know if you all know this, but the Children's Defense Fund was actually really instrumental instrumental in starting the breakfast program around the country. I'm not sure if you know this, but it was a national welfare organization led by black women in the South that actually pushed for some welfare reforms and other safety net elements that actually was really the determinant that brought many people out of poverty. So as I get ready to close, I just want to say that there are women right now. The South is full of, I'm from the Black Belt, and we call the Black Belt, the soil is very, very dark and rich, right? In addition to that, there's throughout this swath in the Deep South, that's where a lot of slaves were because of the soil was so rich and the cotton production. The interesting thing, though, is when you think about coal, I love to think about women when I think about coal. And the interesting thing is that coal, under a lot of pressure, creates diamonds. So the South has a lot of diamonds. There are sisters in the South right now that are leading work. So I put the call of action that we as women have, and we as women of color, we've got to look at what is it that we can do, that nobody's coming to save us. We've got to save ourselves, but we also got to hold people accountable. Second thing that I'll offer is that it's really important to hold philanthropy, progressive philanthropy accountable, that in the investment, and not just invest in us doing more work, invest in us. The third thing that I'll raise, the third and the last thing that I'll raise is there are young women, what I love about the millennials is that, and even in my generation, when we look at the political parties, you can't take us for granted. So I just want people not to take us for granted, because there are alternatives, and we're creative, innovative folks, and we will come up with that. So I'm going to close this in the famous words of someone that I love, is a singer named Beyonce. And I'll close by saying, don't hurt me, because when you hurt me, you hurt yourself. Thank you.
Yes. I was recently asked whether I would ever manage a campaign for a celebrity, and I was like, only Beyonce, maybe Oprah. So thank you for bringing our divine into the conversation. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here, even just to bear witness to all this brilliance. My name is Jessica Bird. I lead 3 Point Strategies, and like Alicia said, we work at the intersection of social justice and electoral politics. And I always tell this story about how on election day mornings when I was a kid, I remember my dad taking me in one hand and some shea butter in another, and he would walk me across the street to the church where my mom was working as a poll worker. There was one time he didn't, and he did my hair, and he was never allowed to touch my hair again. And so I would sit in my mom's lap as she would do my hair. And she worked at the exact same polling location for over 30 years. In our neighborhood, people literally called my mother the voting lady. And so I remember sitting on her lap, and she would pull at the time, and I would watch voters pull at the time like a red curtain behind their back. And I'm looking at my mom like, what are they doing? How do they know what to do? Who's on that ballot? Like, give me answers. And so my mom would always say, they know what they're doing because you bring your community into the voting booth with you. And I'm like, all right, Mom, I don't know what that means. And she's like, your community is in your heart. Your heart is about who the people who live around you, who your family is, and you vote for them. I'm like, okay, fine. And I got really obsessed with this idea that even though we lived in a working poor community of Columbus, Ohio, even though we were poor, my mom worked at the polls to make extra money before Christmas, I still felt like she had so much power. I knew when people avoided her in the grocery store because they hadn't gone to vote. I felt like that was power. And so I really got obsessed with this idea, and I started to work on my first campaign when I was 17 to elect a woman who would eventually become the first Black minority leader of the Ohio State House. And I was told over and over and over again about the mechanics of how to win an election. And oftentimes you're told about this win number. Your win number is literally all of the votes that you need in order to win in an election. And ours was 1,672 votes. And I remember taking a piece of paper and putting it on my bedroom wall, that 1,672 of the people who lived in my heart had to go and vote for this woman who I wanted to become my state representative. And so every campaign that I ever worked on, I did this. And I would take this 1,672, sometimes it was way, 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 way bigger, and I would hold that up as if it was the North Star of our work. And throughout the last 13 years of being positively obsessed with electoral campaigns, I started to look around and to ask why there were so few campaign managers who looked like me, political strategists who looked like me, candidates who looked like me, why there were so few funders who looked like me, why there were so few women at the national level who looked like me. And over again, people would remind me of these mechanics. Well, they just don't have the votes to win. They're just not as ambitious as their counterparts. I mean, Jessica, you know where you're from. Like, folks don't really care about politics. They're not as viable. They're not as viable. Her name is kind of funny. I don't know how that's going to work with voters, you know? I have heard it all. And it got to the point where I thought, this like Post-it note with a win number, that's not enough. There are 50,000 elected seats in this entire country. That's 50,000 jobs that we want people to apply to lead us, to serve our communities. There are 7% of our population are Black women. They only make up 3% of U.S. congressional seats and just almost 5% of elected leadership seats across the country. Right now, we have one woman serving in the United States Senate, and it took 20 years for us to get there. She's only the second woman that's ever served. So that means 0 Black women in the United States Senate in the crafting of the Affordable Care Act, 0 Black women in the United States Senate during the crafting of an economic recession bill that is completely historic, 0 Black women were in the United States Senate when we were trying to appoint the first Black woman U.S. Attorney General, Loretta Lynch. We have been absent from the largest and most powerful elected bodies in the entire world. And so I started to think about not just electoral politics as winning or losing, but also in the fabric of justice that so many of these women are fighting for and so many of you are fighting for. And so in 2015, I started my own firm to specifically ask, what the hell is in our path? And so I started to work intentionally at the intersection of racial justice and electoral politics by asking organizations across the country why they weren't able to elect candidates who truly reflected their communities. And it became very, very clear that not only do we need to know the mechanics of how to run and win, and organizations like Higher Heights for America, who you should know, is helping Black women to do that. But what's also in our path are structural barriers. It's not that Black women are less ambitious than anyone else. It's not that we don't care about political representation. We are the highest and most clinched voter of voting populations. It's electoral systems that make election days hard for our people to participate in. It's the amount of money in campaigns and Citizens United and other election laws that make it difficult to run. It is redistricting and racist gerrymandering laws that make our ballots unfair. And what my work is and what I wake up to fight every single day are gatekeepers. Gatekeepers who tell us that our women aren't as smart, aren't as viable, aren't as worthy as elected leaders as anybody else. In 2015, after working on a U.S. Senate race, I wrote an article called "Get Out of My Damn Chair." And the reason is that so often the way that we approach electoral politics is by hoping that people think that we are worthy enough to lead them. And I want us, and we'll continue this conversation, I want us to think about electoral politics as justice work, just as everything else. There are people sitting in Black women's chairs. It's time for them to get up. And so our job is to make plain that we're not asking for something. We have been prevented, we have been blocked, we have been deterred from taking our rightful seat at the table to do what my mom said, bring our communities there. And when our communities aren't there, we're not there. So I'm excited about this conversation. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you.
I wonder when Jessica's going to run for office. That's a different conversation.
Will you manage my campaign?
Over drinks, let's talk.
conversation in the back of the room. Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Sturdivan, and I'm the executive director of Make It Work. It's a campaign that we launched in 2014 to ensure that the issues of women and their economic security were front and center in the 2016 election. It sort of happened. We'll talk a little bit about how that all played out. But really, our goal was to raise the visibility of what I like to call pocketbook issues and mobilize women to vote on those issues with a specific emphasis on women of color and millennial women. No matter the constellation of issues that someone's grappling with, 99% of people in America are dealing, with pocketbook issues, regardless of whatever other issues they're dealing with. And this is even more prevalent for Black women, right? With that in mind, we put together a bold, economic agenda that we believe would materially improve the lives of Black women and girls. Issues like affordable and quality child care that pays caregivers a living wage, go figure. Equal pay for equal work, raising the minimum wage, making sure that no one has to choose between their work and their family when it comes to paid family leave or paid sick days or fair scheduling and being pregnant at work. These issues impact all of us, and in fact, pocketbook issues often interact and exacerbate all of the other issues that we're dealing with. So when we launched the campaign with that in mind, because we just believe that it's too hard for people to make it work in America today, and that the burden falls disproportionately on Black women. Our goal was to do both organizing and strategic communications, or culture change work, as we like to call it when we talk to people out in LA, at scale, and really talk to people about what they're experiencing and talking to them where they're at, both online and offline, connecting around the issues that they're struggling with, and going to where they are in both a physical sense but also in a cultural sense. Where do they turn to for information, entertainment, humor? We wanted our organizing to be multidimensional because we're multidimensional. So we worked in a series of states since we launched the campaign, and one example in particular in 2016 I wanted to talk about was our work in Nevada, which was one of the bright spots in the 2016 election. And we focused and really leaned in on sort of two issues that we know were top of mind for Black women, and that's equal pay and affordable child care. As the report shows today, about 28% of employed Black women work in service occupations, and the occupation group, with the lowest wages. And jobs in this broad occupational group often lack important benefits like paid sick days. Black families depend on Black women's earnings, and 8 out of 10 Black mothers are breadwinners who are either the sole earners or earn less than 40% of household income. So talking about equal pay or unequal pay really was an important issue for these women. We know that Black women are paid 63 cents for every dollar that a white man makes. And I don't know about y'all, but I want my whole dollar, right? A Black woman loses $900,000 over the course of her lifetime because of the pay gap. So for us, we don't need the statistics to know that we're probably being paid less. And the fear and the legacy of discrimination makes it extra challenging. And it was a unique opportunity to engage women around that conversation, but also motivate them to talk to others in their community and get them excited about engaging them and making sure that they would go out and vote. The other issues that we focused on were affordable child care. As I mentioned, Black women are the backbones of our families and in our communities. My 72-year-old mother takes care of my 96-year-old grandmother and my 3-year-old nephew every day. Why? Because that's just what we do. My brother, who can't afford affordable childcare, needs that kind of support. And so there are so many Black women who are actually playing that role. There are so many Black women who are actually the service and care givers, in the caregiving sector, who, as we heard earlier, are trying to make wages to take care of their own families. And the fact of the matter is that our country has a piecemealed child care system that is not sustainable for anyone. The cost of child care is more than rent or college tuition in many states. And so, we're working right now with a group of legislators and organizations to introduce a bold new proposal for child care that's flexible and affordable for families. So keep your eyes out for that legislation. At the end of the day, we really focused on going to where women were, not just grabbing a list of voters and sending them a piece of, a couple of mail pieces and hoping for the best. We went to their living rooms, we went to their churches, we went to their community events and talked to them about the issues that they were struggling with and that their families were struggling with. And from there, we identified what we called ambassadors. These were people who got connected to our programs through and engaged people in their day-to-day conversations, recruited more ambassadors, and created a real leadership pipeline of people who were engaging others and bringing them along. We lifted their stories up, shared their stories on platforms like Essence and the New York Times and the Washington Post and Refinery 29, making them the spokespeople, allowing them to tell their stories about how hard it is as Black women. So they were really the stars and the backbone of our issue and voter mobilization campaigns. And as we've mentioned, Black women turn out at higher rates than any other, of their counterparts. So the idea that we are engaging them on the issues that they care most about is important. But one of the primary lessons that we learn is that it's not just the candidates that motivate people to turn out, it's the issues. And at the end of the day, it's usually economic issues that's going to motivate somebody to get off the couch and go vote. So we believe that as we look forward to how we actually invest and engage in Black women, the idea that we are investing in their whole person is going to be the thing that continues to increase voter engagement and ensure that people feel that there's a reason to participate in this political process. You cannot engage a Black woman on a conversation around child care policy and not talk about her need and desire to make sure that her child is safe walking down the street. And until our community and the progressive community understands that these issues really do intersect, and we do need to look at the whole person as we're thinking about what that means, we're going to continue to see a decline or a lack of participation in these areas that the report has lifted up in terms of political representation and participation. I finally just want to end with, we're focusing our efforts and energy on how can we ensure that we're engaging Black women and other women of color from a whole person politics perspective. What intersectional messages resonate most? How do we organize from a cultural perspective, whether it's in the South or my hometown in Detroit? And how do we lift up more women to be leaders on this work? We often hear people say that economic justice is the unfinished business of the civil rights movement. And Black women know this in their bones. We need to work to make sure that despite these economic challenges, Black women are supported, are lifted up, are given the resources and the tools they need to continue to lead, because as we know, Black women are the backbone of our families, of this nation.
Good afternoon. I'm Tanya Wallace. I'm the Executive Director of the National Black Worker Center Project. The National Black Worker Center Project is a network of Black worker centers that are all across the country. We work to empower Black workers to stand up and fight for their rights. We work to dismantle racism that occurs in the workplace, and we also work to seek quality jobs for Black workers. So the question before us is why are Black women working hard but not reaping the gains of that work? And when I thought about that question, it made me think about conversations and arguments that we used to have in our house growing up. So growing up, I'm from Chicago originally, and everybody when I was growing up watched Good Times. And I wanted to watch Good Times. And my parents wouldn't let us watch Good Times. And my mom would say, there is no way in hell that Black people who get up every day, go to work, try their best, and pray can't make it in this world. That's a mess. We're not watching in this house. So I didn't understand it at the time, but it made sense, right? That's right. Everybody can agree with that. If you get up, you try your best, you work hard, you'll make it in this world. 1 + 1 = 2. But it doesn't work that way, does it? No. I tell you what else doesn't make sense to me. When I got here last night, I was checking into my hotel, and I was getting on the elevator to go to my room, and there were 2 guys on the elevator, and they were having a conversation about either some kind of website or app or something. This one guy sent this other guy about it, and he's saying to the one younger guy, saying to the other guy that what you do is you put in your demographics, what's important to you, and then this site is going to kick back to you who you should vote for. And so this guy puts his information in, and Hillary Clinton comes up first, and Trump comes up last. We laugh, but this is what he said that just blew my mind away. He said he couldn't understand it, so he voted for Trump anyway. It doesn't make sense. And so it's hard for me to even wrap my head around this question, knowing that this is the reality of the world that we live in. It doesn't make sense. Tracy gave some statistics about the amount of wages that a black woman makes in comparison to her white counterpart, right? 63 cents on the dollar. What does that equate to? It equates to a black woman having to work 8 extra months a year to equal to what her counterpart does. Black women are more likely than any other woman nationally to work at the lowest paying jobs in this country. What are those jobs? Service, healthcare industry, healthcare support, and education. The percentage of black women who are full-time minimum wage employees are higher than that of any other racial group. Black women are overrepresented at low-wage work and underrepresented at top-wage work. And so, to my dad's point and to my parents' point, right, what did we learn growing up? Go to school, get a good job, get an education, get a union job. That's what we were always told. But what we've learned and what we see is that education doesn't make that pay gap go away. In some fields, it even widens. So if you're in the tech field, if you're an engineer and you're black, you have an even less likelihood of making as much money as your counterpart. We cannot deny that racial discrimination is the culprit here. When we think about social justice movements, what are some of the images that come to your mind? What comes to my mind are fire hoses and dogs and lynching and men walking with signs saying that I am a man. And I want to raise that because I think imagery is really important if we're going to make any changes in this country. We can't talk our way out or fact check our way out of discrimination and racism. The reality is, if for social justice movements, particularly in this country, we have to paint a picture. We have to show what that looks like. People have to feel what other women feel. They have to know that pain. And in many instances, they have to be shamed into doing the right thing. There is work for us to do, and I am very pleased that we are here having this discussion and prepared to lead that battle.
Can we just have a moment, please? Y'all see the smoke? There's steam coming up off the stage. It's lit, as we say. So before we continue, and I know we're running short on time, but like, really? What? Yeah, that was a thing. So as I was sitting here and I was listening to all of this brilliance, new ways of thinking about old problems, I just felt so much gratitude for the Institute for Women's Policy Research, for the folks who worked on, researched, pulled together all kinds of things, dealt with NDWA and trying to wrangle us to get our stuff together. Can y'all stand up and get some love, please? Thank you in particular to Heidi and to Elise and Jennifer and all of you. I mean, this is a undertaking of monumental proportions, and it means a lot to have a partner in this work that wants to make sure that Black women are leading and that can kind of push from behind, right? Rather than being out in front, like, hey, this is us, check us out, right? So here's what I want to do in our last few minutes. And then I want to also make sure that there's time, space, and room for Heidi to say some words about the process that brought this whole thing together, because this has been a year and some change in the making. I really want to hear from you all, and there were some really powerful conversations we were wanting to have. We're going to continue to have those. Our commitment to you all is that we're going to take this show on the road, because this isn't the last time that these conversations need to be had. But one thing I really want to hear from you all in our last few minutes, I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I know y'all can deal with this. I would love to just hear from y'all, like, if people need to know one thing, if there's anything that you just bang your head against the wall day after day, being like, why don't you get this? What would it be? And if that's not your question, then the other piece is a vision question, which is 30 years from now, when we dig out this live stream from the archives, what do you want to be able to have said that we accomplished? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Give it up for Alicia Garza.
So I want y'all to just play with that for a little bit, and then I'm going to wave my hands when you need to stop, and then we're going to have Heidi come up. Yeah, do it.
Go ahead.
I want us to choose Black women. And I think in electoral politics, that's all about choice. The way that Black women access seats in this country is through the primary process, period. So if Black women are in primaries, you got to make a choice. Right. And I want us to choose Black women much more clearly than we do now. We talk about it in very amorphous ways. It's great, symbolically, yes, of course we want it. And then they're like, not in my backyard, I don't know. This one time, she didn't give me this one hug, and what I heard was, choose us. We're not going to let you down. We never have. We never have. And so I think, and I feel like, I honestly feel so exhausted, to be honest with you. I'm working on 6 Black women mayoral races. I'm now working on a governor's race for Black women, and this same thing happens every single time. We do this every single time. It's so predictable. We pull them out based on what their personality's like. We pull on them based on their gender. We pull on them based on their race. Like, enough. We have to say that we choose Black women because we recognize not only the vibrancy, but the deep that we owe us for our leadership and the bones of this country. So I think that's what I want to go on the record and say.
So I think I would like, at 30 years from now, I want to see, this is to us, I want to see every Black woman in this country bring her vision into being. Her vision. Right. America's dream has not been our dream. Right. And it's, in many ways, it's been our nightmare. And it's not, and a part of bringing that dream has been at the exploitation of who we are. So I think it's really important. What I would like to see is for us to really bring our vision into being. I think we do that in a variety of ways. I think we should be we are innovative. We should think about what are alternatives for us to look in terms of leveraging political power. Stop, if the same thing is not working for you, we've got to be courageous enough to stand outside the box and look, right? We have power as consumers in this country. So we can say about jobs, but at the end of the day, let's stop buying and let's see who's going to pay attention then, right? So there's some things that I think that we can do. That I just encourage that as people are supporting, what I would like to see is that there are the tools and the resources and the investment and the allies needed for Black women to bring their vision for their lives into being. I dream in Black.
Yes. That's right. So that is a very, very Black vision. I have an abolition vision. If we were to look back on this decades from now, I would hope that we'd be sitting somewhere where we've completely dismantled and obliterated mass incarceration in this country.
Yes. Yes.
and all its connected last vestiges of chattel slavery. That would bring me deep joy and satisfaction. And the thing that I want us to get, which was initially a part of, my 5 minutes ran off, but I made that reference to double Dutch in the beginning. Dr. Moreno Vega, who's a black woman anthropologist, talks about how there's political messages inherent in nursery rhymes.
Right.
And there's this one jump rope games, we always used to say, all in together, girl, how you like the weather, girl? You go, all. And the object was to get as many girls in the rope, in sync, on time, on beat, jump in and out based on your birthday without getting hit by the wire rope.
That's right.
That's right.
I don't know what black woman started All In Together, girl. But that's the thing that she planted, a seed that she planted in a nursery rhyme, in a game, in a jump rope game, that I want us to get moving forward on political participation. We have got to bring ourselves forward, but we've got to be all in.
Together, girl.
My personal vision is for women of color to acquire land, which is natural resources, the real money, basically, land. And other than that, domestic workers, I wish they could be included in the federal, state, and labor protection law. The end.
One thing that for anyone listening, is it was the economy stupid. It still is the economy stupid, right? Layered with race and class and gender issues on top of it. And we can try to talk about these issues in a silos to our peril. If we are not looking at the intersection of race, class, and gender as we go and think about the world that we want to see and the political time that we're living in, if we are not thinking about strategies that are looking at the intersection of those three and identifying ways to talk to people where they are about these issues and creating community across values around those issues, you think it's bad now. You think we're living in fear now. The politics of fear is going to get worse. And black women are the ones who are finger in the dam trying to hold it back. But we can't do that alone. We can't do it alone. And I just had a baby. I don't want him to grow up in a world where he can't walk down the street. I don't want him to grow up in a world where we live in a progressive bubble that really isn't a progressive bubble in New York. Like, this is real. And if we don't start to invest in the communities who actually get it, who need to be supported in their leadership to help change the tide, to have these conversations, to engage others, to bring other folks along. This is happening on our watch. 20 years from now, we look back and we didn't do something about this right now. Shame on us. Shame on us. I don't want to get up tomorrow morning and watch the briefing of Comey. I don't care about that. Yeah. And the people in Flint who still have dirty water don't care about it either. Come on, it's a distraction. Let's get down to what's real, what's really affecting these communities, what they are going to bed worrying about at night, what they're worrying about waking up in the morning. Like, this is our time.
I think for me, I would like to see continued collaboration across the diaspora. That was my entire upbringing. I was always around black people from all different places, speaking all types of different languages of different faiths, and I think that is how I got to where I am today amongst these wonderful women, amongst all of the wonderful black women that I've met throughout my life who are always doing good work, building on this legacy of, we carry the whole world on our backs and never get the credit that we should, but we continue to do it because we do it for our people and ourselves, right? So I just want to see that continue in learning. And what are you doing over here, right? What's happening with sisters in Brazil? What's happening with sisters in Kenya or South Africa? How are we confronting what sexual assault looks like in different spaces? How are we getting together to learn more about political strategy here, there, and the third? Because I think we just have a lot to learn from each other. And I think, even in talking about mass criminalization, when we talk about immigrant detention, it's just a carbon copy, but now it's for profit, right? And in being in conversation with other black women and talking about the similarities between these systems, I've been able to enter into different spaces and do work. And people are entering spaces with me and doing work. Because we just understand that we are all we really got most of the time. So building on that and being in friendship and in community and really in love with other black women from all over.
What I would want to go on the record for having said is that there will be no organizing of us without us. And if there is no organizing of us, there is no hope for a solution for a failing economy. I would say to black women, we must lead, and that means that we must take leadership roles. We cannot afford to wait for something to be given to us. I would say to anyone who is not black, but working in social justice movements, to make space for people that do not look like you. Make space for people with different opinions. Value diversity. And not just diversity of skin tone, but diversity of thought, diversity of experience. We need to organize. And it doesn't mean that I have the solution. It means that the people who are suffering, who live this lifestyle, this oppression, every day, they know what the issues are, they know what the problems are, and they know what the solutions are. Our job is to step out of the way and allow them to lead.
Right.
The best panel I've ever been on.
I wasn't expecting to be called on. For those of you who know me, you know I can be very sentimental, and I'm not sure I'm going to get through this. So I'm going to start with a little drink of water, if I can open the bottle. Yeah. Well, this project, I think, has at least a 2-year plus history, if I'm not mistaken. I think Ai-jen Poo came to speak at the release of our Status of Women in the States report, and afterwards she said, gee, Heidi, would it be possible for us to get a status of black women in the States? And I said, well, I think so. And that's kind of how it started, from that very short, like 1-minute conversation. And I think that I was on vacation, so I think our Vice President, Barbara Galt, continued the conversation. We had a fellow who is an undergraduate, usually just comes from undergraduate college, works for us for a year, Asha Dumontier. She pretty much did the first draft. She had a lot of help. I see Ariane Hegovich, Julie Anderson. I'm not sure who was here when and who worked on what. Chandra, where are you? Way in the back. Stand up, Chandra. Childers, way back there. Elise Shaw. I don't think there's anyone at IWPR who didn't work on the project. I guess that would be one possible way of saying it. But anyway, it has been a pleasure. I would like to thank Celeste Faison. I'm sorry, I don't think she's here today. She is here today. Okay. She stuck with it all through the process, all the ins and outs. And those really, Celeste and Asha, I think, are the main people we want to thank. But I want to thank the National Domestic Workers Alliance.
All right.
Because I told Ai-jen when the first law passed in New York that gave domestic workers rights, my mother, who was a domestic worker, was extremely happy. Oh. That's it.
All right, y'all, so here's the deal. We are going to give our deepest appreciation and gratitude for the folks who are sitting up here. Can we give them some love? some of you do this all the time, but some of us, it's a thing. It's a new thing to be able to be vulnerable with people we don't know and tell the stories of triumph that didn't feel so triumphant in the moment, but they feel triumphant now. And each and every single one of these people on this panel today not only has a zillion other things to do right this minute, and they chose to be here, but exhibits a deep commitment and dedication, not just to black women, although I think it's okay if it's just to black women. But what I'm saying is, y'all exhibit a deep dedication, vision, brilliance, and wisdom that generations after us will continue to benefit from if we fight for there to be more generations and we keep fighting this thing we're under right now. This man want to blow up the planet. Anyhow, I also want to encourage folks after this panel to have conversations with folks. Let this be the introduction, not the end, and we're not even in the middle of the conversation. We literally just scratched the surface, maybe knocked some dust off things that needed to be aired out, right? So let's keep this conversation going. Thank you so very much. Thank you to the Institute for Women's Policy Research for making this report happen. Thank you, We Dream in Black. Celeste is here. Thank you, Celeste, for being amazing.
Can we get a shirt?
Look at you, Jessica. And if you want to find out more about We Dream in Black, you can find information on our website at www.domesticworkers.org. You can also find this report in the same place. Thank you so much.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, I get to close us out with some more thanks, and it's an overwhelming task, I have to say. I could spend an hour thanking everybody for today. And thanks again to the National Domestic Workers Alliance for the partnership and for this fabulous panel. One thing I got out of today is new heroes. New heroes from history who you brought into the room, and living heroes. Some of them on this panel, Charlotte Burroughs, my goodness. It does give me faith and makes me believe a little bit more that we are going to change things. I'm Barbara Galt. I want to just say on behalf of the 3 research centers that came together today to host the event, that we thank you. We thank everyone who contributed today to making it so energizing and so inspiring. First of all, thanks to our outstanding speakers, everyone who took the time to attend, and thanks to those participating via live stream. Some of you are out there, and for those who brought up such interesting questions. And my personal reflections for a minute. I want to thank our opening panel, Beverly and Laylee and Heidi, for starting the day, for considering that really tough question of how do we get here. And I felt like that helped me so much, because I felt like I did gain understanding. Beverly, when you brought in the words of Alice Walker, and you said that it's so important for us to just to talk about how it feels. I felt like in the first 5 minutes that was exactly what I needed, because it's been so hard. It's been so hard. I've felt so beaten down, and I think today I honestly feel ready. I feel energy. I feel inspired. I want to thank Heidi for helping me understand a little bit about white women, why they did what they did, your intellectual energy, and saying, yeah, white women did what they've always been doing. And thanks to Deborah for saying, you white women, you got to talk to the other white women. It's on us. It's on us. And for saying, believe us, because honestly, I was one of those people that's, really? Is it that bad? Are you exaggerating? Oh my God. I believe you. I believe you. And thanks to Rebecca, who said, believe the survivors. Because, honestly, there have been times when I thought, I don't know. Monica, would he be that stupid? Clinton, really? No, he was. So, there's so many people to thank throughout the day. So many great speakers. Thanks to our paid leave panel. I think what that said to me is there are so many ways to make change. There's Jessica sitting in her room with her spreadsheets and understanding it and picking it apart and figuring out what's the difference between the 6-week and the 12-week and the 8-week and the talking to the chambers of commerce and coming out with that local report before their chamber comes out with theirs, and getting that op-ed in, and people that are just in the weeds every day. They'll bore you to death with their talk, maybe. No, you guys didn't. You didn't bore us, but it's an ecosystem. There's so many ways to make change with information, and we've seen that today. The way NDWA is going to use the report on the status of black women, the way that Linda Goler-Blount is going to talk to people in a way that they can understand, the way you're going to target people with data, the way just a conversation can make change, the way Heidi's conversation with iGen ended up with what we're doing today and starting something brand new. So thanks for all that inspiration, and I'm sure everyone has their own their own experience from today that we can all share with each other in a few minutes when we finally get to our reception. But there's some other thanks before we close. Also very inspiring through this process was the dedication, the fierce competence, and the energy and vision of the staff of the 3 centers, particularly Donna Tambasio. I mean, seriously. We felt, Heidi and I talked in the beginning, and it's like, oh, we don't feel like doing this. We're so depressed. Donna's like, we're doing it. We're setting the date. We're setting the date. Set the date. We're doing it. Donna is a doer extraordinaire. Dana Pride Jones. I mean, all the planning, but she kept us on time all day. You don't mess with her. Jennifer Clark. Yeah. She is so skilled. Just put together all the plans for the TikTok of how the day's going to run and talking points and so much work. And the report, we released the report today. All of that is Jennifer's doing from North Carolina. So Gina Cirillo of IWPR did so much in terms of coordinating the panels and the speakers. I got to thank the donors, thanks to the Novo Foundation especially, for your support, your flexible support to allow us to be a little crazy and say, yeah, we're coming up with this report sometime when we're good and ready, and just having the faith that it's going to happen and it's going to be good. The Ford Foundation, the Annie Casey Foundation, the Fannie and Stephen Kahn Charitable Foundation, the Cowles Sulzberger Fund at Wellesley College, and many others. Thank you very much for your generous support of all 3 centers. I believe that today is going to change history. I do. I don't know how. I was at my daughter's 5th grade graduation yesterday. They each had to give a speech, and her speech was about how we need to leave the disputes of yesterday behind, and the future is a mystery. So what is today going to bring? I don't know. I don't know what conversations are going to happen, what new research is going to start, what new collaborations, what new grant is going to be given. And isn't it going to be fun to find out in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? So my call to action, which before today I didn't even think I was really going to be able to authentically deliver, is just to take 5 minutes, and that thing that you thought about today, that idea you had, like, oh, that's interesting, I should learn about that. That person you talked to said, we should talk, we should get together. Just take 5 minutes, take 15 minutes, and do it. just do that thing you thought of doing, and let's see what happens. Let's see what comes out of this, and let's all get back together in 8 years. And okay, we'll do another conference in 4 years. We're going to pick up the pace. All right. We'll get back together in 4 years, and we'll report back. So see you then, and let's have a beverage and celebrate.